So, is everybody COVID compliant today? My intention was to make a cooking video since I wasn't able to sleep.
Come on now, little fishy. Come on. I don't want to disturb you, but I know you're getting all nice. That's the sound we want to hear right now. Let's sock up.
And I figured I'd make something to cheer everybody up. It's got cabin fever.
You know what's kind of cool about this is that people are doing like 60, 65 in 30-mile-an-hour zones out here like it's nothing. And if you don't, I mean, they're going to mow you down. They're going to cut you down. So you keep with the flow or you know where to go. You get out of the way.
Well, instead I found myself walking along the train tracks early in the morning, just after the sun came up, and checking out some artwork and trying to catch some trains. And well, here's what turned into a 4-hour hike. It was both artistic and a little tragic at the same time. So I will let you know that there are a couple of scenes in here that are a little bit on the gritty side. Nothing graphic, nothing that's going to upset a snowflake or anything, but just be mindful of it. And anyway, hope you enjoy the video. Check it out. Well, I was feeling restless and I wasn't about to cook, so I came down looking for some trains. I took a look around. I asked myself, what kind of shake and bake reality is this anyway? Look at this mess. I mean, we're essentially living on a proprietary planet with a hidden source code, am I right? It's like an open-air prison of sorts. And speaking of prisons, why don't we lobby for conjugal coronavirus visitation rights for the people who are not being released from prison? Why should they be subjected to a possibly, invisible death sentence? I know they're letting a lot of people out now, but there's a lot of people that they're not letting out. What do we do about them? Sounds like a good business opportunity for somebody to open up like a mail-order milk surplus store or something along those lines, eh? So as you can see, there are people obviously sleeping down here under the bridges and all over America, all over the world in the same predicament. And have you ever noticed that the people who are going to be harmed the most by political decision are the least involved in the discussion? And the same people that are making those decisions are the ones that sold off all their stock just before this pandemic hit. They cashed out, they made their money. And that's why I couldn't sit at home and make a cooking video, self-incarcerated while I'm bottled up with all this anger at the notion of being robbed blind once again right in front of my face. I mean, Wall Street and the bankers, they didn't even ask for the bailout this time. They just took it flat out. 12 years later, after the 2008 bailout. And we're being fleeced and beaten once again into financial submission. Yeah, don't worry, right? The banks and government will gladly loan us what they stole from us, at great interest, of course. They're all a bunch of treasonous friggin' cretins, man. They should be tried for their criminal actions flat out. And then these politicians, they're snake oil slicksters. They're perpetrating these frauds. They're preying upon people's loose fears, their base fears, the invisible enemy. That's a base fear everyone has. And they're exploiting this opportunity to implement stuff like facial recognition, of course, to protect us from sick people. We gotta identify them. So we gotta roll out more cameras. We're gonna have even more surveillance of cell phones, all the contacts you have, your GPS locations, social media. They want the social credit score system, like the Chinese have. They're like the role model for the rest of the planet. It's sickening. They're going to track credit card purchases because they're going to want to eliminate cash money, even though it can't transmit viruses. There's going to be a gradual implementation of a universal basic income at some point in the future. Maybe it'll be with the second wave. Maybe there's going to be a second wave of this virus. We'll get over this one. We'll come out of lockdown. Things will go back to normal. We'll just be a bunch of useless eaters. The words of Henry Kissinger, the yachties, and they can look down over us while we're fighting over our toilet paper and rice and everything else, and all the naughties, the yachties and the naughties. The yachties, they've got their yachts and their underground bunkers in Cheyenne Mountain, wherever else they got them. They're fighting over that at NORAD command to see who gets a seat. And then you got the rest of us, the naughties, the useless eaters, as they refer to us. So maybe I'm being totally paranoid about all this, and I hope so. I hope that's my own issue to deal with, that I'm wrong. That would be really awesome. I just know, I've been around and I know how people think, and I know if I was in a position of power and I was a friggin' psychopath, well, I would let my imagination run wild and I would achieve full spectrum domination over the entire planet. I'd want to rule the world and subjugate everyone to my whimsical, that's... So I'm not practicing any social distancing, but I am respecting physical distancing, of course, and avoiding people in public, absolutely, and stores as much as humanly possible. People are still behaving a bit irrational and erratic in some instances. 6 months ago, You were stockpiling all this stuff, you would be considered a prepper. Now, you're a hoarder. I don't know if there's a moral to the story here, but do what you can to help each other out. Right now, try not to stress out too much. Keep your eyes on the prize. Historically, throughout planetary history, after a plague like this, life has never gone back to quote-unquote normal. So, yeah, we are definitely all expecting major changes. Just like what happened after 9/11. They passed that legislation at 1 o'clock in the morning, while most of us were asleep, of course. Look at what's become of the world since then. People were told, if you see something, say something. There were signs all over the bus stops and the train stations, and the snitch culture was reborn. People were installing cameras in their doorbells, they still are, and everywhere else, allowing police and the government to spy openly like the East German Stasi. I mean, do you think my language is too strong when I say things like that? Or maybe it's an over-exaggeration to use those terms?
We're still alive. You alright, brother? What's that? Hey, brother. Sir.
People were told, if you see something, say something. There were signs all over the bus stops and the train stations, and the snitch culture was reborn. People were installing cameras in their doorbells, they still are, and everywhere else, allowing police and the government to spy openly like the East German Stasi. I mean, do you think my language is too strong when I say things like that? Or maybe it's an over-exaggeration to use those terms and create that type of imagery in people's heads. I'm going to remain totally open to that possibility. I got to realize the majority of people seem to be embracing it. So, I mean, they're calling the police when they see someone coughing in public, when people are out taking pictures in public, or God forbid a family of 5 openly congregates in a public park in violation of the social distancing rule, even though they're related to each other and live in the same household. How far do you want to take this? Do we start enforcing prenatal distancing on pregnant women and their babies?
Oh, sorry, ma'am. Please drop the chalupa and step 6 feet away from the fetus.
How's that work? Do I think there's a virus out there in the wild that's weakening people with already compromised immune systems and contributing to possible deaths? Sure, absolutely. And at the same time, I also know that there's a ton of politicized fuckery going on in order to capitalize on this tragedy. Who knows for sure, one way or the other? There is no conclusive evidence to support anyone's notions or claims on either side. And if you were, for instance, a totalitarian type whose mission it was to establish a new world out of this chaos, wouldn't it be nice if people could not distinguish between what is real and what is not real? Wouldn't it insist your endeavors if people turned against each other and fought for favor with you, though none shall ever be seated at your table? Absolutely, that's how people like that think. A new order will arise from this chaos, and the question is, what are you willing to give up? Are you going to sacrifice even more freedoms and liberties? Oh, don't worry about your precious freedom of speech. That has not been compromised. It's just been indefinitely suspended. That's all. It'll be restored once this all blows over. The facial recognition cameras will be taken down. The cell phone apps that track your health will be disabled. The police will no longer have access to your health records and your history, etc. So keep on salivating for a vaccination from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which is our only salvation in this incarcerated nation. Oh, and get right with your God while you're at it in case these illustrious philanthropists let you down. Mr. Gates might own the global seed vault to replant food for the planet in the event of an apocalypse, but he neglected to mention the fact that Monsanto and Bayer poisoned all of the soil with the glyphosates and Roundup. So we might not be able to grow any plants, but they can. Have no fear. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. I appreciate it, and be safe out there. Peace out.